Sarah Martinez had always dreamed of serving her country. Growing up in a small town in Texas, she watched her father return from his military deployments with stories that filled her with pride and determination. At 18, she enlisted in the Marines, ready to prove herself in a world dominated by men. The scorching heat of the Afghan desert had become her second home over the past 8 months. As a communications specialist with the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force, Sarah had earned respect from most of her unit through her technical skills and unwavering dedication. Her ability to maintain communication links in the harshest conditions had saved lives more than once. But respect wasn't universal. Staff Sergeant Mike Davidson had made it clear from day one that he didn't believe women belonged in combat zones. His constant undermining and hostile comments had created tension within the unit. Sarah had reported his behavior multiple times, but the complaints seemed to disappear into bureaucratic black holes. On that fateful morning in September, the unit received orders for a routine patrol mission near the Pakistan border. Intelligence suggested minimal enemy activity in the sector, making it perfect for training newer Marines in real-world conditions. Sarah packed her equipment with practiced efficiency, checking her radio systems twice before loading into the convoy. The landscape stretched endlessly before them, a mixture of rocky outcroppings and sandy valleys that had witnessed countless conflicts throughout history. Sarah rode in the 3rd vehicle, monitoring communications between the convoy and base camp. Everything seemed normal as they moved deeper into the remote region. The first sign of trouble came through intercepted radio chatter. Sarah's headphones crackled with fragments of conversation in local dialects, suggesting enemy movement in their area. She immediately alerted Lieutenant Colonel James Wright, the mission commander, who ordered increased vigilance, but continued the patrol. As they approached a narrow valley surrounded by steep cliffs, Sarah's equipment detected multiple radio signatures converging on their position. The patterns were unmistakable. They were walking into an ambush. She frantically tried to raise base camp, but someone had been jamming their primary communication frequencies. The attack came from 3 sides simultaneously. Rocket-propelled grenades struck the lead vehicle, sending it tumbling down an embankment in a ball of fire. Machine gun fire erupted from concealed positions on the ridgelines, pinning down the remaining Marines behind their vehicles. In the chaos that followed, Sarah worked desperately to establish communication with headquarters while treating wounded Marines. Her training kicked in as bullets whined overhead, and she moved between defensive positions with medical supplies and ammunition. The ambush had been carefully planned, and the Marines found themselves outnumbered and outgunned. Staff Sergeant Davidson, despite his personal animosity towards Sarah, recognized her value during the firefight. When the radio operator in the command vehicle was killed, he ordered Sarah to take over all communications coordination. She managed to establish contact with air support and began directing rescue operations while continuing to treat casualties. The battle raged for 3 hours before Apache helicopters arrived to drive off the attackers. As dust settled and casualties were counted, 12 Marines had been wounded and 3 killed. Sarah had performed admirably under fire, saving several lives through her medical training and maintaining crucial communication links throughout the engagement. However, as medical helicopters evacuated the most seriously wounded, a terrible realization dawned on the remaining Marines. In the confusion of the retreat and casualty evacuation, a critical error had been made. The final headcount revealed that 1 person was missing from the convoy. Sarah Martinez was nowhere to be found. Initial searches of the immediate area revealed nothing. Her last known position had been near the command vehicle, treating a wounded Marine when the withdrawal order came. In the smoke and chaos of the retreat, no one had seen what happened to her. Her radio equipment was found abandoned next to a blood-stained rock, but there was no sign of Sarah herself. Staff Sergeant Davidson claimed he had ordered everyone to fall back to the extraction zone, but witnesses contradicted his account. Several Marines reported seeing Sarah still treating wounded soldiers when the withdrawal began. Others heard her voice on the radio coordinating the evacuation even as enemy fire intensified. Lieutenant Colonel Wright immediately ordered search teams back into the valley, but Taliban fighters had reoccupied the area. Drone surveillance showed no signs of Sarah or evidence of her capture. The official incident report listed her as missing in action, but many in the unit suspected something more sinister had occurred. Back at base camp, Sarah's disappearance sparked intense investigation and finger-pointing. The Marine Corps opened a formal inquiry into the incident, interviewing every member of the patrol. Staff Sergeant Davidson's story changed multiple times during questioning, raising suspicions about his role in Sarah's disappearance. Private First Class Tommy Rodriguez, who had been treating wounded alongside Sarah, provided damaging testimony. He recalled seeing Davidson approach Sarah just before the withdrawal, appearing to give her specific orders. Rodriguez was evacuated before he could witness what happened next, but his account suggested Davidson might have deliberately separated Sarah from the group. As news of the missing Marine reached higher command levels, pressure mounted for answers. Sarah's parents, Maria and Roberto Martinez, flew to Germany where they met with military officials demanding to know why their daughter had been left behind. The media began picking up the story, adding public scrutiny to the military's handling of the incident. The official investigation proceeded slowly, hampered by conflicting witness accounts and the dangerous security situation in the area where Sarah disappeared. Taliban propaganda broadcasts claimed they had captured an American soldier, but no proof was provided. Intelligence analysts couldn't determine if these claims were credible or merely psychological warfare. Meanwhile, Sarah's unit struggled with guilt and anger over losing one of their own. Many Marines blamed themselves for not ensuring everyone was accounted for during the withdrawal. Others pointed fingers at Davidson, whose hostile treatment of Sarah was well documented throughout the deployment. The search efforts continued for weeks, involving special operations teams, local informants, and sophisticated surveillance technology. Every lead was pursued, from alleged sightings in remote villages to intercepted communications suggesting American prisoners. But Sarah Martinez seemed to have vanished without a trace in the vast Afghan wilderness. As the investigation stretched into its second month, darker theories began emerging about Sarah's fate. Some suspected she had been deliberately abandoned by Davidson as revenge for her complaints about his conduct. Others wondered if she had been specifically targeted by enemy forces who had inside information about the patrol. The truth about what happened in that desert valley would eventually surface, but not through official military channels. It would come from an unexpected source, a group of elite warriors who operated in the shadows, bound by codes of honor that transcended service rivalries and personal grudges. The Navy SEALs were about to become involved in a way that would change everything. #Shadow Warriors Lieutenant Commander Marcus Reaper Thompson had been leading SEAL Team 6 operations in Afghanistan for over 2 years when the message came through encrypted channels. The communication was unusual, a direct request from a Marine Corps intelligence officer seeking assistance with a missing person case that had gone cold. The SEALs typically focused on high-value targets and strategic missions, not search and rescue operations for individual soldiers. But something about this case caught Thompson's attention. The missing Marine was a communications specialist who had disappeared under suspicious circumstances, and there were hints of possible insider involvement. Thompson's team was between missions, having just completed a successful raid on a Taliban command center near Kandahar. His 8-man unit included some of the most experienced special operations warriors in the military, each with specialized skills that made them invaluable in the most dangerous situations. Chief Petty Officer Jake "Ghost" Williams was Thompson's second-in-command, a former Delta Force operator who had transferred to the SEALs after completing multiple tours in Iraq. His expertise in reconnaissance and intelligence gathering was legendary among special operations communities. The team also included Hospital Corpsman Second Class Maria Santos, one of the few female SEALs who had successfully completed the grueling training program. Her medical skills and ability to operate in culturally sensitive environments made her particularly valuable for missions involving civilian populations. When Thompson briefed his team on the Sarah Martinez case, the reaction was immediate and intense. The idea that a fellow service member might have been deliberately abandoned by her own unit violated every principle the SEALs held sacred. Their motto, "The only easy day was yesterday," applied not just to their own operations but to their commitment to never leave anyone behind. Ghost Williams began analyzing the available intelligence on Sarah's disappearance, cross-referencing it with known enemy activity patterns and local informant networks. What he discovered painted a disturbing picture of incompetence and possible treachery within the Marine unit. The timing of the ambush suggested inside knowledge of the patrol route and schedule. Taliban forces had been perfectly positioned to maximize casualties and create confusion during the withdrawal. Someone with access to operational details might have provided information to enemy forces. Williams also uncovered troubling information about Staff Sergeant Davidson's financial situation. Despite his military salary, Davidson had been making unusual purchases and sending money to overseas accounts. Bank records showed transactions that coincided with increased enemy activity in areas where his unit had operated. While Williams pursued the intelligence angle, Thompson decided to investigate the human terrain in the region where Sarah had disappeared. Local tribal leaders often knew more about missing persons than they shared with conventional military forces. The SEALs had spent years building relationships with Afghan allies who might be willing to help. The team deployed to a forward operating base near the Pakistan border, using their specialized equipment and training to penetrate areas too dangerous for regular forces. Their modified vehicles could traverse terrain that stopped conventional military convoys, and their night vision capabilities allowed them to operate when most enemy forces were inactive. On their third night in the field, the SEALs encountered Abdul Rashid, a tribal elder whose village had been attacked by Taliban forces the same week Sarah disappeared. Rashid was initially suspicious of the Americans, but Thompson's fluent Pashto and respectful approach gradually earned his trust. Through careful questioning, Thompson learned that Taliban fighters had indeed captured an American soldier in the area. However, Rashid's description didn't match the standard enemy propaganda about prisoners. The captured American was reportedly a woman who had been found wounded but alive after a firefight. More importantly, Rashid revealed that Taliban commanders had been arguing about what to do with their prisoner. Some wanted to use her for propaganda purposes, while others preferred to negotiate for prisoner exchanges or ransom payments. These internal conflicts had delayed any public announcements about the capture. Ghost Williams correlated this information with intercepted communications, identifying patterns that suggested Sarah might still be alive and held in a compound near the Pakistani border. Satellite imagery revealed a fortified facility that matched descriptions provided by local sources. The compound was heavily defended and located in terrain that would make conventional rescue operations extremely difficult. Multiple escape routes led into Pakistan, where American forces couldn't pursue without creating international incidents. Any rescue attempt would need to be swift, surgical, and completely successful on the first try. Thompson's team began planning an operation that would require all their specialized skills and equipment. The compound was surrounded by open ground that provided excellent fields of fire for defenders. Approaching undetected would require careful timing and exploitation of natural weather patterns. Maria Santos studied the cultural aspects of the situation, identifying ways to minimize civilian casualties and reduce the likelihood of international complications. Her analysis suggested that the compound served multiple purposes, including housing for tribal leaders who might not be directly involved in holding Sarah prisoner. As the SEALs prepared for their rescue mission, disturbing new intelligence emerged about Staff Sergeant Davidson's activities. Williams discovered encrypted communications between Davidson and known Taliban sympathizers in the local population. The messages suggested Davidson had been providing information about Marine patrol schedules and routes in exchange for money. The revelation that Sarah might have been betrayed by her own unit commander added urgency to the rescue operation. If Davidson was working with enemy forces, Sarah's continued survival might depend on her value as a propaganda tool or bargaining chip. Those calculations could change rapidly based on political or military developments. Thompson made the difficult decision to proceed with the rescue mission without informing higher command about Davidson's suspected treachery. Official channels would require extensive investigation and bureaucratic approvals that could take weeks or months. Sarah didn't have that kind of time. The SEAL team spent 48 hours in final preparation, rehearsing every aspect of the operation using detailed models based on satellite imagery and intelligence reports. Each team member had specific responsibilities that would need to be executed flawlessly under extremely dangerous conditions. Weather forecasts showed a dust storm approaching the region, which would provide cover for the team's insertion, but also create communication challenges. The SEALs would need to rely on hand signals and pre-planned contingencies once they entered the compound area. On the night of the operation, Thompson's team inserted by helicopter 20 kilometers from the target location. They moved through the darkness using night vision equipment, avoiding enemy patrols and sensor networks that protected the approaches to the compound. As they neared the target, Ghost Williams spotted unexpected activity around the facility. Additional vehicles had arrived, and thermal imaging revealed increased numbers of armed guards. Intelligence suggested that Taliban leaders might be planning to move Sarah to a different location. The timing couldn't have been worse. The SEAL team would need to execute their rescue operation immediately before their window of opportunity closed forever. But they were about to discover that Sarah Martinez possessed inner strength and survival skills that no one had anticipated. #The Power revealed Sarah Martinez had survived 63 days in Taliban captivity through a combination of military training, personal determination, and careful psychological warfare against her captors. What her rescuers didn't know was that she had been gathering intelligence and planning her own escape for weeks. During her first days of imprisonment, Sarah had been interrogated repeatedly about American military operations and troop movements. Her captors expected a broken soldier who would eventually provide useful information. Instead, they encountered a Marine who understood psychological resistance techniques and turned their own methods against them. Sarah had convinced her guards that she possessed valuable intelligence about upcoming American operations. She fed them carefully crafted misinformation that seemed credible but would actually benefit American forces if acted upon. This deception bought her time while gradually earning a degree of trust from Taliban commanders. Her medical training proved invaluable when several guards became ill from contaminated water. Sarah treated their symptoms while secretly observing the compound's security procedures and guard rotations. She mapped escape routes and identified weapons storage areas during her supervised movements around the facility. The compound held other prisoners, including 2 Afghan interpreters who had worked with American forces. Sarah established communication with them using basic sign language and shared her escape planning. The interpreters provided crucial information about local geography and Taliban organizational structure. Lieutenant Commander Thompson's SEAL team had positioned themselves around the compound perimeter when the unexpected activity began. Additional vehicles suggested that Sarah might be moved to a more secure location deeper inside Pakistan. The rescue window was closing rapidly. Ghost Williams monitored enemy communications while the team prepared to breach the compound walls. His intelligence intercepts revealed that Taliban leaders were indeed planning to relocate their American prisoner within hours. Some commanders wanted to move her to Pakistan immediately, while others advocated for a prisoner exchange negotiation. The debate among Taliban leaders created an opportunity. While they argued about Sarah's fate, security around the compound became less rigid. Guards were focused on the heated discussions between commanders rather than maintaining optimal defensive positions. Thompson made the critical decision to advance the timeline for their assault. Using hand signals, he directed his team into final positions around the compound. Each SEAL had memorized the layout and knew exactly which buildings needed to be cleared first. Maria Santos positioned herself to provide sniper cover while the assault team prepared to breach the main building. Her medical training would be crucial if Sarah had been injured during her captivity. Intelligence suggested that prisoners were typically held in the compound's central structure. As the SEALs prepared to strike, Sarah was implementing her own escape plan. She had convinced her guards that she needed to visit the compound's medical facility to treat recurring symptoms from injuries sustained during her capture. The request seemed routine, and guards were accustomed to escorting her for medical needs. The timing was purely coincidental, but Sarah's movement toward the medical building brought her closer to where Thompson's team was preparing to breach the compound walls. Her guards were 2 young Taliban fighters who had grown complacent after weeks of routine prisoner supervision. Sarah had been planning this moment for days. As they passed through a narrow corridor between buildings, she struck with lethal precision. Her Marine combat training overwhelmed the surprised guards before they could raise an alarm. Within seconds, she had acquired weapons and was moving toward what she hoped would be an escape route. The sound of the brief struggle reached SEAL positions around the compound perimeter. Thompson initially thought enemy guards had discovered their presence, but the pattern of sounds suggested something different. Someone was fighting inside the compound. Ghost Williams observed muzzle flashes from the interior courtyard that didn't match Taliban firing positions. The flashes moved in patterns consistent with trained military movement, suggesting that someone with professional combat skills was active inside the facility. Thompson realized that their rescue target might be attempting her own escape. This changed the tactical situation completely. Instead of a static rescue operation, the SEALs now faced a dynamic situation where friendly forces were already engaged with enemy personnel inside the compound. The SEAL team modified their assault plan in real time. Rather than breaching all entry points simultaneously, they would create diversions to support whoever was fighting inside while maintaining escape routes for extraction. This required split-second coordination without radio communication. Sarah fought her way through the compound using tactics she had observed during weeks of careful surveillance. She knew where weapons were stored and which routes offered the best concealment from guard towers. Her intimate knowledge of the facility's layout gave her advantages that even well-trained attackers wouldn't possess. Taliban guards responded chaotically to the unexpected internal threat. Some rushed toward the sounds of fighting, while others maintained their defensive positions, expecting an external attack. This confusion worked in favor of both Sarah and the SEAL rescue team. As Sarah cleared the medical building and moved toward the compound's outer wall, she encountered the first SEAL team members breaching the perimeter. The meeting was tense for several seconds as both parties verified identities in the darkness and confusion of combat. Thompson immediately recognized Sarah's tactical competence and incorporated her into the extraction plan. Her knowledge of enemy positions and compound layout proved invaluable as the combined force fought their way toward the extraction point. Sarah had become an asset rather than just a rescue target. The Taliban response intensified as commanders realized their valuable prisoner was escaping. Reinforcements arrived from nearby positions, creating a running firefight as the SEALs and Sarah moved through the compound toward their extraction helicopter. Ghost Williams coordinated air support to suppress enemy reinforcements while providing cover for the ground team's withdrawal. Apache helicopters engaged Taliban positions with precision strikes that avoided civilian structures and minimized collateral damage. During the extraction, Sarah provided crucial intelligence about Taliban operations and the extent of Staff Sergeant Davidson's betrayal. She had overheard communications between her captors and Davidson's contacts, confirming that he had provided detailed information about Marine patrol schedules and routes. The rescue operation succeeded with no SEAL casualties and minimal enemy civilian casualties. Sarah required medical attention for injuries sustained during her captivity, but her condition was stable. More importantly, she possessed intelligence that would lead to the exposure of a significant security breach within Marine units. The revelation of Staff Sergeant Davidson's treachery sent shockwaves through the Marine Corps command structure. His arrest and subsequent court-martial revealed a broader network of corruption that had endangered American personnel for months. Several other military members were implicated in providing information to enemy forces. Sarah's survival and escape demonstrated the effectiveness of Marine training and the importance of never giving up hope in desperate situations. Her ability to gather intelligence while imprisoned and coordinate with SEAL rescuers showed exceptional professionalism under extreme stress. The incident also highlighted the crucial role of Navy SEALs in unconventional rescue operations. Their willingness to operate outside normal channels to save a fellow service member reflected the special operations community's commitment to the principle of never leaving anyone behind. Lieutenant Commander Thompson's team received commendations for their successful rescue operation, but they insisted that Sarah deserved equal recognition for her role in the mission's success. Her intelligence gathering and tactical contributions during the escape had been essential to the operation's positive outcome. Staff Sergeant Davidson was eventually sentenced to life imprisonment for treason and endangering American personnel. The evidence of his collaboration with enemy forces was overwhelming, thanks largely to intelligence Sarah had gathered during her captivity. His betrayal had cost lives and compromised numerous operations. Sarah Martinez returned to duty after recovering from her injuries, eventually becoming an instructor in survival and resistance training for Marine personnel. Her experience provided valuable insights into maintaining psychological resistance during captivity and recognizing signs of insider threats. The bond between Sarah and Thompson's SEAL team continued long after their return to the United States. They maintained contact through reunions and training exercises that brought different military units together. Their shared experience had created lasting friendships that transcended service rivalries. Years later, Sarah often spoke at military academies about the importance of never giving up hope and the power of teamwork across service boundaries. Her story became a testament to the strength of American military personnel and the effectiveness of elite units working together toward common goals. The true power of the SEALs had been revealed not just in their tactical capabilities, but in their unwavering commitment to fellow warriors regardless of which uniform they wore. They had demonstrated that honor and loyalty transcended organizational boundaries when lives were at stake. Sarah Martinez had been left behind in the desert, but she had never truly been alone. The brotherhood of arms that connected all American military personnel had ultimately brought her home, proving that some bonds cannot be broken by distance, danger, or betrayal.